Doodlebud here. We're checking out this cool new lens that Apexel sent to me. It's a 100mm macro lens. I have one of their other lenses. A little too much zoom on that one, a little bit too much magnification, but this one just clips on as well. And I think it's perfect to do a nib grind. I'm going to grind up this one. This is the Mahjong P136. This pen is actually going to a viewer because they have a very kind gesture that they did for me. I'll explain to you at the very end what that is. But I thought, I don't use this pen that much. It has a great nib on it. Nothing wrong with the pen. Just, it doesn't post. So I don't use it a whole lot. It just needs to be a little bit longer. I mean, it's a very kind of sloppy posting. You can press it on and give it some oomph, and then it will stay on. Like, you just got to really kind of push it a little bit harder. But for whatever reason, I just don't use this pen. So it might as well go to somebody else who will hopefully use it. So I'm going to show you how to do it. Normally, I inspect the nib first to make sure it's all good. But this nib is absolutely perfect. It writes wonderfully. I could just give it to him like that. It's a fine nib and it works perfectly well. But I thought, let's take it a step further and also use this macro lens. So you can see that's the close-up we're getting now. It gives great detail, nice and clear. I've been playing with this lens and I'm very happy. I'm going to do some grinding. I'm starting off with a 400 grit stone. I thought I should share with you some of the screeching that you get when you do this. It's how it is. A little bit painful to hear, but I'll just give you updates as I go. So that's just the initial part. I grind the front down to have a look how far down along the tipping I want to go. So that's sort of the first part I do with the grind. I have some other videos too, if you want to see some more detail. That's about where I want it though. So let's get the front all taken care of. It's come back down to where I want. Now I'll put the flats on the bottom and on the top. And in case I forgot to mention, this is a cursive italic. I call it my crowd pleaser. I don't know exactly the difference between a smooth cursive italic or whatever, but just something to give line variation, but can also I try to make it suit as many hands as possible for depending how you write. So we got the bulk of it done on the 400 grit. These are just cheap whetstones I use. If you want information, I'll have links down in the description. But I just keep consistent strokes, and we just move it up now. That's 1,000 grit stone. So when essentially all the work's done on your first initial stone, all the course, and then you're just polishing and improving it from there. This is a 4,000 grit whetstone I use as well. I use these for sharpening my knives. That's how I started this whole thing. I sharpen knives and straight razors and figured I can do this on a nib as well. At the 4,000, I like just to break the sharp corners that you get because it is very, very crispy and it's got burrs on it, very sharp edges. So I like to use the 4,000 grit for that. Let's put this lens back on again. All these close-ups, you can see this is doing a great job. So just a quick writing sample. This is the rough cut. You get line variation, but you cannot write with it like that. So now all the polishing comes in. These are those micro mesh pads you've possibly seen if you haven't before. Again, I'll put a link in the description. Here in the Lower Mainland, the Vancouver area, there's a place called Lee Valley Tools. I pick them up, but you can get them online as well. I'll provide some links down below. And so now I'm just refining the contours, getting it away from a very chiseled, blocky style tipping to keeping that general shape, but then just rounding it and smoothing it over so it's usable and getting rid of those burrs and just giving it a little bit of a polish, something you go slow with. Now this is another way you can do it too, and instead of moving the pen, you just have the pen sort of stationary and just go across it with the pad that way. I find this helps you sometimes get a little more specific in certain areas when you're feeling the nib during a writing sample. If you're checking it under magnification, it lets you just sort of get a little more detailed and zero in on those little spots. So I start with the 4,000, then I go to 6,000, 8,000, and eventually I will finish off on a 12,000. And you can see it's starting to look a little bit better, a little more polished. I'll just keep repeating this and just do writing samples to feel where it's at. And I'm pretty happy with where it's at now. Again, there's a trade-off between line variation and it being sort of harsh. So I think I sort of found the sweet spot, hence why I call it the crowd pleaser, as in it can please pretty much anyone in the crowd, depending on, no matter if your writing style. So I'm trying some different papers. I was using Rhodia, now this is Regalia. I'm doing some Muji paper, just trying to get all the differences. And of course, mango chutneys is a great test to check all the different angles and scratchiness and feel and line variation, and I'm pretty happy with it. So I just did a bunch of writing samples. I thought I'd try, the Quick Brown Fox, give that a go. And what I ended up doing was just a writing page on some Muji paper to go with them. You can turn the nib like this 90 degrees, and instead of cursive italic, it's like an architect nib. I guess that about wraps things up. I want to say thank you to Apexel for sending me off their new 100mm macro lens to play around with and review. This is going to be a great addition to the channel. I loved seeing some of the footage I can give the viewers, especially when I'm doing nib grinds or other things like that, close-ups of pens. So expect to see this one around a lot. I'm pretty happy with it. The chromatic aberrations on it are pretty minimal. It has a longer working distance, which is great. Previously, they sent me this one, 200x. It's 20x. I did a test to show you. Nice close-ups. It has a little light on it, but the working distance is essentially right there. Everything has to be right up against it. So it is very, very difficult to show some of those details. Versus here, I have a little bit less zoom, but greater working distance. I did a writing sample with the new Ensso bolt and was able to use this one to get you a real close-up of that, and that turned out exceptionally well. So very happy with that, the clarity. I have quite a few ideas on how I want to use this with some other videos too. It slides up and down on here, so it can adjust to your phone size. I would just say maybe a little bit better travel on here. If they just could expand this a little bit more, a little bit longer travel. They do have another model. I don't know if it's the same lens, but it looks like it kind of clips around the sides of the phone with a spring, and the lens can slide up and down a little bit longer. So, depending on your phone, it will most likely fit your phone, but there's just different options as well. But I've been pretty happy with these. This saves me a bunch of time, especially, for doing these videos. I just simply go up to the phone, clip it on, because I record everything off my phone, and I just keep on recording as I normally do as I do my videos. So having these to clip on and give good images has been a huge time saver. They also provide a discount code. So they set it up. There's a link down below in details, but saves you 10% if you're buying one of these. Or I think it works on this one for sure, possibly the whole Apexel store. Not 100% sure on that one, but I'll have the details down there and you can give that a try. Now on to the reason I ground that pen. Was a viewer reached out to me and they offered me something from Lamy, and as you can see there's a little nib in here. So the story is they reached out to me and they have a Lamy 2000. They dropped it and the nib got messed up, and they had it repaired, but it just wasn't the same, just wasn't where they liked it, and so they ended up purchasing a new nib, and they love it. And so this one's just been sitting around, and they're a fan of my channel. They live very close by, and said, you know what, maybe Doodlebud can do something with this. So one, you know who you are. Thank you so much for thinking of me, and I hope you're enjoying the pen I did up for you, and I have some ideas for this one. I believe, as you can maybe you can see it here, but these nibs kind of set themselves up for an architect grind. So I think that would be quite cool. My Lamy 2000, I already have an extra fine nib, and I ground that to an extra fine cursive italic. And I think this would be a very cool architect grind, and just that pen itself I think would do very well with an architect grind. So that's the plan anyways. I'll be using this in a future episode to show you how I do that and get you close-ups as well. So keep your peepers out for that one. Thanks again for providing that. Thanks again to Apexel. Thanks to you. Hit the thumbs, hit subscribe. Until then, we'll catch you next time.